Imagine that you've got a big suitcase that's full of cash, but it's not just any type of cash. It's loaded with $100 bills. And this case is just basically, a suitcase is just brimming to overflowing with cash. And you close up that suitcase and you stuff it under your bed and you leave it there for about 3 years. That, my friends, is what personal injury lawyers do when it comes to case expenses. They finance the cases themselves with their own cash, which is in essence an interest-free loan to the clients. And then when the case resolves, or whether they win or lose, then hopefully they will get reimbursed. But they don't earn a penny of interest on the money that they've spent in case expenses. That's sort of like giving somebody an interest-free loan. You're not making any money on it. So what is the solution? And before I go on, one of the biggest issues here when people talk about cash flow for plaintiffs' personal injury lawyers is not the cost of running a law firm, overhead, staff, insurance, all this other stuff. What the major expense is all the case expenses that we've got out at any given time. So the solution, in my view, is case expense financing by a third-party lender. We use Advocate Capital, and basically what Advocate Capital does is when we advance money on a case, they will pay us back. They'll pay us the money. It goes into our account. It's very seamless. And then the clients will sign an agreement, in addition to the retainer agreement, acknowledging that there will be a borrowing cost on the money that we use to finance their case expenses. And at the end of the case, we provide that they will pay half of the borrowing cost. So if they borrow, let's say $20,000, and the borrowing cost results in a finance charge of, let's say, $2,000, that they will pay half of that and my firm will pay the other half. Now, what is the benefit to a client of doing this? Because the benefit to your law firm is obvious. Number one, you don't have any expenses for the expenses of your lawsuits. Someone else, a third-party lender is paying for that. That's huge. So you have extra money to put into vacations, marketing, whatever you want. That is an absolute no-brainer. And your clients are paying the cost of borrowing. So whether, in my case, we pay half of the borrowing cost and the client pays the other half, but that's the exception. Almost every firm who does case expense financing, they have the client pay all of the borrowing cost. So there's a lot of positives. But what are the advantages to the client? One of the advantages that I explain is that even though it's not difficult for us to finance their case or other cases, the reality is we have many cases, and our firm has 21 active files. And sometimes the expenses can be as high as $150,000 to $250,000. And we need to be in a position to go dollar for dollar with the insurance companies. And that means hiring the best experts in things like neurological surgery and some of these specialties where it costs a fortune to hire the best. But you've got to do it. And so we never skimp when it comes to experts. And having a third-party lender who pays the expenses basically gives us the ability to go dollar for dollar with any insurance company that's out there. We've only had one client who did not agree to this, but that client eventually changed their mind because when they saw all the money that we were spending and all the hard work that we were spending, and we didn't even ask them, they just changed their mind and said, we understand why you're doing this and will agree to the case expense financing. So right now, we have not had a single client who's declined case expense financing. What I would recommend is that you have a conversation with Mike Swanson at Advocate Capital. They're based in Nashville, Tennessee, and Advocate Capital is just simply a phenomenal company. What they do for me is when I was starting out my law firm, they accepted me as a client. We have a line of credit for case expense financing, and they give me sort of an itemization case by case of the amount that's being borrowed per case, as well as the finance charges per case. On average, the finance charges that accrue on a case are incurred primarily near the end of the case when the expenses get high. And so the length of time that you're borrowing is relatively limited to a pretty short period of time. And as a result, the typical borrowing costs range between a low of, let's say, $1,000 and a high, I think the most we've ever spent is $5,000 or $6,000 on borrowing costs. So it's reasonable. And that we're splitting that 50-50 with the clients just makes perfect sense for the clients and for us. So it's a win. Mike Swanson put a full-page ad in Trial Magazine of the American Association for Justice that featured our law firm. 6 months. He didn't ask us if he could do it. He just did it. And it was amazing. So for 6 months, we had a photo and all these wonderful things that people were seeing us in Trial Magazine. That's just the kind of person that Mike Swanson is. You really owe it to yourself and your law firm to give him a call, because Advocate Capital has been a tremendous strategic partner for my law firm, and I highly recommend it. If you like this video, please share it with your friends, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Bye-bye.